Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Security Squawk podcast. I'm Bryan here with Andre and Randy. What's up, guys? How are you today?
Doing well. Good morning. Welcome back, Randy.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back.
Yeah,
Good
buddy.
to see everybody.
Yeah. Very interesting, probably week for you, sir.
Yeah.
To say the least. Yeah. Randy and I held down Andre and I held down the fort while you were gone. No worries. Actually had one of the most viewed shows we've ever had.
We're like, woohoo, that Randy guy's gone. Let's go watch it.
Yeah.
No craziness going on with the there we go. I got to get my notes for the show blown up here so my old eyes can see them. My goodness. All right, boys, let's talk about what we got to talk about today, which is a bunch of articles on cyber attacks, ransomware, all that good stuff that we talk about on the show. I'm going to cover an article. Hang on one second. My notes are all a mess. I'm going to cover an article here on, I always love these insurance reports that come out because these are the guys, I look at those as like, these are the guys that look at you or give you the truth, right? Because they got to pay the bills when these companies that don't do enough get hit. So interesting information I'm going to pass along in my topic today. Then we got kind of a similar thread that I saw in all the stories, guys, a gap between what businesses think their risk looks like and what it actually costs when things go wrong. And Randy's going to cover a school in Texas who got knocked offline suddenly by a cyber attack that they can't fully explain what's going on. And then Andre's going to round us out with a story out of Indiana where a sheriff's department that is literally rebuilding their entire IT operation from the ground up after ransomware destroyed everything it touched. So we're going to get into that and these other two topics today, all with the goal of helping you understand what's going on out there in the world of cybersecurity. So just remember, we don't take sponsors. We don't bring and run ads on this show to bore you. We just bring you the goods. We cover a variety of topics, usually 2 or 3 per show, to try to just clue you in on what's going on out there in the world. And hopefully you'll pick up something on how to protect yourself. And if you do happen to find value in something in the show, all we ask is that you help spread the word, share it to your social media, share it to your friends and family. If you want to support us directly, you can head over to buymeacoffee.com/Security Squawk, and you can donate or give us any amount you wish over there. And we appreciate the support. So that link is down at the bottom as we go through the show today as well. So, guys, I want to get into it. Chubb just released their, I guess, which we would call their long-awaited. Oh, Randy, I made you disappear. Sorry about that. Their long-awaited cyber claims landscape report here out in 2026. It's actually hot off the presses. And there's a number in there that I want every business owner who could potentially be listening to this. I wanted to sit with them for a second. And what I found interesting is for large companies, businesses doing over $1 billion in revenue, the average cyber insurance claim in 2025 was 4.4 million, right? So the reason that's interesting, because in the same report in 2024, it was only 2.2 million. So that's not a trend. That's doubling ransomware payments in 1 year. And you know what, guys? Since 2021, and I think we've been doing this show in that time, that ransomware payment number has gone up 586%.
Oh.
At the same time, claim frequencies actually went down. So what that tells us is that attackers are being more selective, but when they do hit, they're hitting harder and they're doing more damage per hit. And I think that that's what we've been covering throughout the years in this show, where we can look back, 3-4 years ago, and we would be talking about a slew of businesses all over the place just getting hit. And I think that's still the case. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are still businesses out there that are getting hit, and they're very small. They can't afford to pay. They're not immune to this. So don't take this as a very black and white conversation, because it's very gray. But when it comes to financials, hackers going after the payments, these are the companies that they're going after, right? In other words, like, you might be a small company, you might get hit, but we've seen it where the hackers have walked away. They've given you the key because they feel bad. Different things happen, or the business just decides, like, hey, we're just going to kind of get through this, muddle through this, not pay. And that's another way that a lot of smaller companies that don't have to report on these things, they're not a sheriff's office, they're not a school district like we're going to talk about today, that are so publicly facing that you can't avoid telling people what is going on. An accounting office in your small town, more than likely nobody's going to notice that type of event, right? So here's the kicker, guys. I'm going to kick it over to you after I mention this one. But the biggest drivers out of this report aren't the ransomware payments themselves. And this should be no surprise to anybody who watches this show. Business interruption costs and litigation are higher than what you pay for ransomware and recovery at this point in time. So ransomware and recovery don't cost you as much as what opportunity costs, opportunity loss when your business is down, and the litigation that comes after that. So here we go. It's all in the insurance data. It's all we need to look at. And basically everything we've been saying on this show is now coming true in this report with data, verifiable, quantifiable data.
I mean, Bryan, so just to comment on that last thing you said, the I in IT is information. The I in CISO, which is a cybersecurity officer, stands for information. It's always been about the data. And it's crazy now, not going to go on a side note, but we're putting so much data into AI, which potentially can put it at risk. But yes, that is the number one. I think it's the number one on the horizon risk that businesses face is litigation over data. And that maybe it's not here yet. Maybe it's over the horizon, whatever, but I think it's the up and coming that it's like the new kid on the block, if you will, that we really have to start thinking about. And that's data risk related to litigation, related to data and all that jazz. That's a great point that you just brought up.
And I'll take a different angle on this article. The fact that how we're talking about these companies are getting sued because they have cyber insurance. That's something like in Florida, we are a big litigation state where, you can just do a little trip and all of a sudden it becomes a tumble and the person wants to call the ambulance and make a whole big deal about, their toe that, just got a little sprain or something like that. And the reason is because the attorneys in this lawsuit, like if it's a slip and fall, the attorneys basically are now guaranteed to get paid for that work. So it's the same concept of these hackers know that these big companies have insurance, and they know that if they do attempt and they are successful in doing some type of ransom or a breach, they know their insurance is going to get paid versus that smaller guy that may not have the insurance. So I love that now the insurance companies are, sort of kind of becoming the auditors where they're asking, and not only asking, they're asking for proof of the MFAs. Do you have backups? When was the last time it was tested? Show us, screenshots and so forth like that. So I think it's great for our industry. I think it's great for our business model as well, because now, someone, a lot of times I'll have potential clients that they'll say, well, if I have cyber insurance, why do I need you? Or I'll be okay because if something happens, I have cyber insurance. And hopefully this now changes the mindset and shift in how they look at this.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, there's a ton of other. I mean, if you can download this is the Chubb insurance. Actually, we'll if you're watching us on YouTube's, we'll link it in the description. But there's a ton of information in these reports that you can pull out of it, especially if you're a cyber defender. They're really helpful to look at these reports every once in a while to kind of see what's happening out there and how attackers and how businesses are falling victim to these things. Small to medium-sized enterprises, guys, in that report, average claim for them, 142,000, right? So, do you have 142,000 laying around? If not, you're going to need cyber insurance, right? So the other thing that they're pulling out, so that's small businesses. Medium-sized businesses, their average claim is 800,000, right? And then the average cost for an uninsured small business to get through an attack themselves is well over $80,000.
Wow.
So you can try to fight it yourself, right? Or you can use insurance. Now, obviously, with the price tag when you're using insurance is going to be higher based on the data in this report, guys. Why would that be? Like, we could talk about that. Like, why would insurance? I mean, the same thing happens in healthcare, right? If you use your insurance, a lot of times it's a lot more expensive, right? And people look at that and they poo-poo it all the time without having all the information. But a lot of times when you go, and it's no different with cyber insurance, and this is why I'm bringing it up. When you go through insurance, they do a thorough job. Like, they don't miss steps. They make sure that everything is done correctly, right? No different is to, like, if you went to the doctor, right, or a hospital, and you tried to use insurance versus not insurance. Well, if you don't use insurance when you go to a hospital, you're kind of in charge of your care at that point, right? So you can say you don't want to go to a specialist, you don't want to do a follow-up, you just want to have this procedure done. And as long as you can find a doctor to do it, there's really nobody who's going to tell you you can't do it that way. Not the case when you go through insurance. When you go through insurance, you're going to go through a process and you're going to follow their process. You're in the system. And a lot of times that's why it costs more. Because, like, I'll just take, for example, my son recently had an injury, and, like, we obviously went through insurance for that. And there were very specific things that we had to do, certain specialists that we had to see in order for them to kind of give them the care that they would give him under the insurance, right? The reality of it is I could have walked into that ER and told them, like, hey, just stitch up his foot, right? And let's go on about our day, right? But because we were using insurance, they looked at it. They were like, hey, that there's something might be going on with a ligament or something like that. Mm-hmm. And we want that looked into further, right? And being in that situation, in other situations in healthcare, when insurance is involved, the practitioners are overly cautious for two reasons: litigation, number one, and because they can be. And it's the same thing when you're going through a cyber event, right? Mm-hmm. The breach attorneys come in and they give the businesses support, and they're very literal about what's going on. because they know what can go wrong if they don't do it the right way.
Right.
Right. And sometimes we miss that. And that's why it costs more. Right. So a business, and the reason I pointed it out, guys, is because like a business can go, well, if I have cyber insurance, I can get through an event for $80K. But if I don't have cyber insurance, I can, according to this data, I can get through an event for $80K. But if I have it, it's going to cost me $142. Well, it's not going to cost you $142. It's going to cost the insurance company, number one. And yes, it's going to cost more because they're actually going to put like 5-6 professionals, a team of people in your environment to help you get through that event, right? Professionals who know what they're doing, who get paid $400 or $500 an hour easily to do what they do.
Right.
That $80K number is like your MSP helping you get through an event, right?
Yeah,
and
that's your out of pocket
$80K that you're going to pay your MSP or your IT company or some other firm to come in and help you out.
Yeah, that's would be your out of pocket. Then if insurance is involved, yes, the overall cost goes up, but your overall out of pocket goes way the heck down.
Yep.
If you're properly insured.
So a couple other things just to point out. They expect premiums to increase 20% in 2026 as a result of what's going on out there. And we are now at a point where 86% of ransomware victims are refusing to pay. So only 14% of ransomware victims actually are paying the ransom these days. And that is why I said earlier that these small enterprises are basically looking at situations and going, you know what, we'll just muddle through. We'll not pay. We'll not recover. We'll not worry about if the information gets shared on the dark web. We'll just muddle through like nothing happened. And that's a big reason why that number sits at 86%.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, guys? Like thoughts like in terms of like this doesn't look very good for anybody, for us as people who provide these services and for businesses who are just willing to kind of like, guys, I look at this now and it's like, oh my God, like businesses have just decided that we're going to get beat up every once in a while and be okay with it. Randy, seen any different?
No, you're spot on everything you said. I don't disagree. And you know, we all know, like, if this is almost like a dead horse for us, it gets worse every year, and the line of costs of cybercrime has been like a straight line at a 45-degree angle, you know, for like the past at least 5-6 years. And it's projected to continue on. Also, though, like the skeptical side of me, I don't disagree with anything facts here, but the skeptical side of me is like, well, this is also an insurance company saying that rates are going to have to go up. Is this more them justifying why they're going to be raising the rates? I know that's a little skeptical, and I'm not trying to be a hater, but it is still the reality. And guys, if you're a business owner, there's some industries that are considered high risk, and for a $2 million policy, you might be paying, you know, $800 a month or something. But guys, for most businesses that aren't considered high risk, it's extremely cheap to get the cybersecurity insurance, and I would highly suggest that you get it. And it does vary from industry to industry. And just like health insurance, there's a game to play to get the best price. So find somebody. We all can recommend somebody who's really good at playing that game, getting you the best possible insurance at the best price. But highly, 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 highly recommend it.
Yeah, for me as a business owner, you know, we all have to decide, is it worth the risk? And I think the peace of mind that the insurance gives you, like even, for example, our QuickBooks Online, we pay an extra for a third party to back up the QuickBooks data that's sitting on QuickBooks server for like $17 a month, $200 a year.
Yep.
And, thankfully QuickBooks is, last X amount of years, they've never had some type of destruction where they're like how Rackspace basically said, hey, your data's gone, sorry. But we pay it for $200, and we've been paying it for the last 4 or 5 years since we moved to QuickBooks Online. But it's just that peace of mind, just knowing that if something ever happened to them, we know that we can just go and restore our data. So for me, I like the peace of mind. And I know I'm giving a $200 example, but even when it comes to, Microsoft 365, your Google Workspace, whatever, it's just peace of mind to pay that extra money just to make sure that if something happened to my business, I know that I have insurance and I know I have third-party backups.
So one last thing I'll kind of mention here is there's a ton in this report. I'm not even scratching the surface, but before we move on to the Alamo story, SMEs basically not paying. The data is all over the place. Like they're just refusing to pay. And small businesses still pay an average of $142,000 in just ransom, right? So if you don't have insurance, or you're a small business thinking you're just going to muddle through, you better have about $100K in pocket change sitting around if you expect to get through a cyber event, right? So if you're a business that does about 20 million or less, right, you better have a reserve fund of about $100K if you don't have cyber insurance and you're not really planning for this stuff. So I don't know. If you're running a $20 million business, guys, is your insurance policy $100K and hope for the best, right? Because these are just averages. Exactly. Your mileage may vary, right? It might not be $100K for you. It might be $200K or $300K, right? 20 million or less. It could, we could be looking at $5 million businesses here in this data set, right? And that number will increase 4 times if you're a $20 million business. So it's 400,000, not 100,000. So your cyber insurance policy, guys, is only worth what it actually covers. So know what that is before you need it. That's very important, right? And that's a big takeaway. Understand like what your limits are, what your deductibles are, and what will happen if you need to use it, right? Because a lot of times companies are surprised to find out that their insurance company takes over the recovery process and the remediation process, and they don't really have too much of a say what goes on, right? So understand whether or not they provide their own incident response team or whether you get to pick your own. Policies vary and your mileage may vary on all that stuff. So That's my advice on cyber insurance. All right, guys, moving right along. Randy, Alamo Heights Independent School District in San Antonio, close to your heart, I know, is a well-regarded school district. They have about 5,400 students, according to my research. They went offline on Monday last week, March 23rd. Wi-Fi down across all campuses, Gmail down, everything. What's happening?
All right. Well, so you kind of got the ball rolling there. A lot of their systems.
That's my job.
Excuse me. What's that?
Say that's my job.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of their systems are down. They are so Alamo Heights ISD is like literally like 20, 30 miles from here. It's basically, they're basically like just a couple school districts over basically from us. And they were still able, this has been going on for about 8 days now. The schools are still having school as normal. They're having classes. Teachers are having to teach, old school way without technology and all that stuff. It knocked out their Wi-Fi, it knocked out their internet, knocked out their Gmail. They brought in an outside forensic specialist. They did confirm that it was ransomware. So a couple things like really stand out. One, we sometimes on our show, we really like to look into local attacks when they happen because it kind of makes it real and it kind of brings it home. But I'm asking a bunch of questions here that haven't come out yet. So they're saying like, we don't see, I'm doing the air quotes, we don't see any, like any evidence yet that data was released. And I'm thinking to myself, so Gmail is how they're communicating with each other. Gmail is how they're communicating with parents, maybe students. I don't know. Maybe the students have Gmail addresses. I know in our school district, they assign a Gmail address. So the teachers talk to the students via a Gmail. So the Gmail has been, it sounds like it's out. So it's probably been compromised, which says to me, there's a very good chance that the bad guys have got in there and have gotten a hold of sensitive data. Like, I can't see any way around that. I know they're saying there's no evidence of that. And then also, I'm asking the question over here, like, so they're saying it's ransomware. And, we don't usually see ransomware and like what we call a business email compromise. And we know that there's more than just the Gmail. So if it's ransomware, that means they had to get in somehow. Could have been through an email, most likely. 90% of all, well, actually around 95% of all attacks, that's like the first little entry point is an email. So probably they got in, an email was sent, somebody clicked on something, and then the bad guys got a foothold so they could start encrypting things, locking people out. And, basically then that's where the ransom comes in. We don't know if they paid it or not. But my big question is like, how did they get in? And it's a little more than it seems just on the surface, because it has been confirmed as ransomware. And what we're seeing all over the country, we're seeing a huge rise in K through 12 attacks because they're loaded. We've talked about this before. They're loaded with data for the bad guys. And a lot of times it's people that are under 18. So the bad guys can use that data to do things like open accounts and things like that. And usually, somebody that's a kid's not monitoring their credit report. So they don't know all these things are open. They just one day, go to apply for a job or apply for a credit card or something like that requires a credit check. And they're like, why is my credit so awful? And it's like, well, you didn't pay that credit card when you were 8 or whatever, that they open and end up getting shut down later. They also have all kinds of information like medical information, special education records, disciplinary records, all kinds of sensitive files. So this is one to just kind of keep our eye on. It's not going to really make the national news, and we have a saying on this show, just because you're not big enough to make the news doesn't mean you're not big enough to get attacked. Here's a perfect example right here. A smallish school district of like 7,000 students, that got hit. The bad guys are probably going to make money off of this. And, it's also a bigger lesson, I guess. And I'll wrap up on this and see what you guys think. But it's also a bigger lesson on basically that cybersecurity is not just about stopping the hackers. I say this all the time, but it's about limiting the blast radius, protecting continuity. We mentioned that today. Y'all, that's like the data stuff we talked about and the litigation, huge risk. And other big thing coming over the horizon, maybe already here, but it's another huge thing is business continuity. So we have a real example here of a business, quote unquote, a school, they're continuing, but like communications messed up, all kinds of other stuff. So a lot of big lessons to learn here, and love to hear your guys' input on this.
Yeah, and I don't want to speculate too much, but you kind of mentioned something that had me thinking more, and I don't know if that was your point, but we talked about the Wi-Fi being disconnected, so essentially the internet being disconnected, and then the Gmail being disconnected. So it's one thing to get into the network, but it's also another thing to get into your Google admin suite. So it seems like either, and again, that kind of goes back to, your cyber incident recovery plan, because if you get a ransomware on the machine, that doesn't necessarily mean your G Suite is compromised. But if you're a student, now everybody, let's just say they say, okay, for the 5 days, all the students have to, work from home and remotely. you should still be able to do Google Meets and like remote work type of, remote video classroom things. So it's interesting to see if the plan that they had was to just, hey, we don't know how it happened, which angle it came from. We're still trying to figure it out. Let's just shut down everything. Or did they get into their Gmail, admin account, and now you got someone having to call, the Google 1-800 number to say, hey, we have a problem. Our G Suite got hacked. We needed to restore admins and stuff like that. So, and again, that leads to a plan, because for some companies and organizations, it may make sense to just pull the plug and everything stops working. But in other cases, it may make more sense of, okay, if we know there's ransomware on the computer, let's just isolate the computers, but our phones can still work, and then our emails can still work, for example. So, so planning.
That's some very good points. And yeah, the fact that they're not just in the email, and we've got Wi-Fi issues and internet issues, and it's been confirmed as ransomware, they're probably sitting on a system, you know what I mean? Or more, one or more. We don't know. It hasn't come out yet. And apparently they're back to work on a lot of this stuff in the last day or so. We're hearing reports that they're starting to come back online, but we still are waiting on more information.
So while I was doing research for the article, Randy, I came across something that I found interesting, and that in 2023, just 3 years ago, Texas launched a $55 million cybersecurity grant program for K through 12 districts.
Yep.
Interestingly enough, $55 million available for all schools to actually harden their defenses. And by early this time last year, only a third of Texas districts had even applied. So the money's there.
Yep.
The urgency is not. And that's the gap. And now Alamo Heights is offline, and we don't know what was taken, whether it was preventable. And, quite frankly, that's a leadership failure from the top down, right? Superintendents and the state need to work together to figure out that this money's there. And superintendents need to take advantage of this, or the only reason you wouldn't is if you think your district's it's not going to happen, right? And I have those conversations with superintendents in New Jersey all the time, Randy. So it's not like, this is a Texas problem. Quite frankly, This is a business problem, right? Because it's not unique to schools. I've seen this in businesses all the time. There are resources available to private businesses, state programs in a lot of states that will help you harden your defenses, especially if you're nonprofit, especially if you're government related, like education. CISA has free tools that you can sign up for that are available to you. Some you have to wait in line for, but hey, you're getting it for free at the end of the day. I mean, CISA will do risk assessments on businesses. You just have to get in line, right? And the order they do them in is based on whether they think you're going to get hacked, how big your business is. Like, you're a big business, you're in a critical infrastructure area, you're going to get moved to the front of the line over, say, like a pizza shop. You know what I mean? So like, that's kind of how they look at it. But if you're a pizza shop and you want to get a risk assessment, your government will do it for you if you have no other resources to get it done. And I don't think a lot of people know this stuff. There's a lot of resources out there, not for everybody, but for school districts, for government, for municipalities. There are grants out there that you can go after to help you fund what you need to pay for to harden your systems and protect yourselves so you don't end up like this Alamo Independent School District. So, any last thoughts there, guys, before I move on?
Well, I don't know about real thoughts, but I'm over here shaking my head because the money is there.
Yes.
And They're not taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
And it's a lot cheaper to be prepared and to either be prepared for, recover from a cybersecurity event. It's a lot cheaper to do it before it happens than to do it after, bringing in experts and all that jazz. Not to mention the breakage of trust, potential leakage of data. I mean, there's a whole lot of things here, but bottom line is it's dumbfounding to me right now. That's why I keep shaking my head that there's money there and we're not utilizing it.
Okay. All right. Looks like Andre's ready to move on. So I thought this one was a little bit of an interesting, I guess, gut punch when it comes to everything that we're talking about. Jackson County Sheriff's Office in southern Indiana, small county of about 47,000 people, guys, got hit with a ransomware that came through a phishing email. Andre, fill us in.
I mean, this is just like a sad country story, man. It's like it's like sad because, like you said, it's a county about 50,000 residents. Likely it says about 50 employees between sheriffs, admin positions, etc. And they literally have which is good. They have a policy that says we're not going to pay the ransom. But the problem is they don't have a backup. Like if your policy is not to pay the ransom, kudos to you. But when you don't have a working backup, that's like, oh my gosh, what were you thinking? And they basically now have to purchase new computers because some of them they just don't trust anymore and say they just need brand new computers. You have the sheriff's department where they have to go to old paper and pen. And this is definitely they're literally saying that they saw the ransomware jump from computer to computer to computer. So there's no network segmentation. There obviously was no tested incident response plan, and there was no like antivirus. I mean, even if you had a McAfee would have maybe stopped it and isolated or something like that. But I don't know what the heck they're doing in this county, but this was just really, really poor IT for them.
Sounds it. Randy, thoughts? I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I agree with what he said, and it is kind of crazy, in light of this whole show. I mean, we think about it all day long, right? But just in light of this whole show, it's pretty crazy that we've got a county that's down, in 2026. And like I said on the last little segment, right at the end, like 2 minutes ago, it's a whole lot easier to do this stuff up front and get it in place now. Both the prevention and the blast radius limitation, the continuity, the recovery, like so much easier just to do it up front. And yes, it costs more than what you've been paying for IT before. That's the shocker. Okay. It does because it's extensive, takes a lot of work. But short story long, just do it up front. Okay. I know we've been saying that for years.
And you would think if I'm a citizen, at least like the last line of the article, even though we're going to start from scratch and we're going to have to pay a lot of money to buy, 50 new computers or reload, the operating system for X amount of computers, insurance is covering it. Nowhere is it even mentioning insurance.
Right. And I don't know what it costs for cyber insurance for a city. I know in Texas, because we serve municipalities, in Texas, you can get cyber insurance through like the Texas League of Cities. I don't know the exact term, what it's called right this second. But it's a group. Your city has to be a part of it, and you can get the cyber insurance through that. And, I don't know if they have anything like that in Indiana, but you're right. So I'm just saying that to agree.
Yeah. It's called being self-insured, AKA tax money.
Just a couple things. the attackers have also kind of noted that they have the sex offender registry, full information of all those people. So that's a public safety failure, for one. And the other thing is the overarching kind of thing I want to talk about is this no ransom policy that some of these, especially government entities, have taken on. Because it sounds great, it sounds noble on the front side, right? But when you look at these other cities that have done this, right? Atlanta refused a ransom demand somewhere in the neighborhood of like 51,000 to 76,000, right? But their recovery cost them 17 million. Baltimore, same story. Small demand in the hundreds of thousands, $18 million recovery. So Jackson County is now rebuilding from ground zero. I'm not saying they should pay the ransom, guys, but I'm saying, I'm backing up kind of what Andre was saying here. The entire conversation changes if you have tested offline backups. You know you can recover. But if you have no idea, if you've never gone through this, right, then you sitting there going, we're not going to pay the ransom is just a stupid decision. And you can't label it any other way because you have no idea, right? Yep. The right way to approach this, if you haven't figured it out, is get with your people, get with your team, get with your IT people, whoever, your MSP, test your recovery process. When you know it works without a shadow of a doubt, then you can go around pumping your chest saying, we're never going to pay the ransom. That's the right way to go about it. But just going about it because your ego says, oh, we're never going to pay the ransom, you're going to end up like these cities, unfortunately. And it's going to cost you tens of millions of dollars to deal with your recovery. Any last thoughts there, guys?
No, that's it.
Cool. All right. So today we covered 3 completely different organizations. We got Chubb out there, a global insurance company, basically saying, hey, you know, the numbers aren't looking good. And then we have 2 stories to back that up with the Texas School District and the Indiana Sheriff's Office. And there's one thread running through all of it. The gap between what risk actually looks like on paper and what it actually costs when you have to deal with it for real is far and wide. Chubb is telling us that claims are doubling and premiums are going up. Alamo Heights lost everything because their communications and their operations had no redundancy. And Jackson County is rebuilding everything from scratch because backups weren't tested and the malware was allowed to sit quiet long enough to destroy everything that it touched. So 3 stories, 1 lesson. The cost of preparation is always smaller than the cost of the alternative. And that's a wrap on the show this week, folks. Security Squawk, if you got something out of today's episode, do us a huge favor. Subscribe wherever you're listening. Leave us a review. It genuinely helps other business owners, other people find this show. And if you want to go deeper on any of the topics we covered today, head over to securitysquawk.com. You can check out all our episodes there from the beginning till today. It's been well over, 5 years, guys?
Yep. Let's see what I had here.
And as always, we'll be back next week. And if you want to support the show directly, head over to buymeacoffee.com/Security Squawk. We'll see you then. Stay sharp, stay safe. And take care, everyone.
And let's give a shout out to our audience on the comments.
Oh, what do you say, Luke? Oh, he's glad to see you back, Randy.
Yeah. See?
At least there's one out there.
That's right. My one fan.
And we have a somebody saying so true, right?
Yeah. And
it's saying it's called being self-insured, aka your tax money. Reginald Andre.
Yeah.
Must be a fan of yours. So, all right, guys. I'll see you next week. Thanks for your input. Take care.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.